rapper serving time for shooting Megan Thee Stallion is in stable condition tonight after allegedly being stabbed by another inmate in the prison yard in California. Sources say Tory Lanez was rushed to the hospital. He's expected to be okay. He's serving that 10-year sentence for shooting Megan Thee Stallion as they left an LA party back in July 2020. Priya Sridhar is joining us.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta let y'all know that when it comes to this situation, and especially with me having an emphasis on hip-hop as far as my coverage, I had to dive deep into the Tory Lanez Peterson album because I've been listening to this since it came out. One of the few hip-hop albums that I think has a lot of quality, and it's because of that artist using his life and putting it into the music, which I think is the purest form of art. So why do I say that? Because track 12 off of Peterson that was released this year, titled Charlie Rowe X Wishing Well. This man, Tory, said, and I'm gonna put it up on the screen, Analytic Dreamz video on Spotify to see the video along with the audio. Tory said, if you could, well, hold on, let me switch this right quick. Okay, Tory said, if you could only hear the screams from these prison walls, dog, I done left up out that visit with it in my drawers. I don't know what that means. So many nights I feel like killing one of these, and this is PG podcast. We just gonna say he wanted to kill one of the gentlemen, right? So he wanted to kill one of these people, dog. I had to plot, I had to scheme, but you was in my thoughts. I felt so many cold shoulders. It made me colder. In the pen, without your knife, you better call a soldier. In the pen, without your knife, you better call Jehovah. Now, that is why I always say when it comes to art and when it comes to putting your life into the art, that is one of the best things you could do as far as people being able to understand what you're going through in the midst of your musical creation. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Tory Lanez was stabbed in prison 14 times. 7 stab wounds to the back, 4 to the torso, 2 to the back of the head, 1 to the left side of the face. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you know this in so much detail? Well, I'm glad you asked. Tory Lanez team put up themselves a post about Tory Lanez being stabbed 14 times, including 7 wounds to the back, 4 to his torso, 2 to the back of his head, and 1 to the left side of his face. This is from his team specifically. They said both of his lungs collapsed, and he was placed on a breathing apparatus. I think that's how you say it. He is now breathing on his own. Despite being in pain, he is talking normally, in good spirits, and deeply thankful to God that he is pulling through. He also wants to thank everyone for their continued prayers and support. Now, the reason why I went over the lyrics, the reason why I talked about the Peterson album, because that's literally him rapping about his experiences in the prison, which I detailed as far as talking about how Tory Lanez made an album from prison that's very high quality on some Vibes Cartel type beat. Because if you really think about it, the quality level that Tory Lanez has put out from behind bars should showcase not only his talent level, but just why it's so important to make the proper decisions in life. Because no matter how much talent you have, it only takes a second for that opportunity to be taken away. Now, this is not me getting on my soapbox. I'm just letting y'all know I'm one of the few people that not only cover the instances where he may be stabbed in prison or him going to prison or the entire court proceedings as far as him versus Megan Thee Stallion, but I also listen to his music from, I think his first one was I Told You. I remember listening to Tory for his entire musical career. So I'm coming at this from a hip hop perspective. I'm coming at this from a legality perspective because, of course, I covered Tory Lanez all the way back in August 8, 2023 when he was sentenced to 10 years. But I also talked about how there was a Beyond Scared Straight that, as far as the Tory Lanez prison experience, August 20, 2023, when I covered that as well. Tory Lanez Alone at Prom Deluxe, as far as 2023, I covered that. The leak track, or the alleged leak track of Drake's Free You, which is basically freeing Tory Lanez type track that was leaked to the internet. And then I covered, of course, his album when it came out, when it came to Peterson. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because I've been listening to Peterson probably more than majority of people in 2025, because this album came out in 2025. The reason why I say that is because there's another instance on this album. I forget what it is. I will have to play it to remember, because it's not lyrics in the song. It's him actually talking about the experiences in the courtroom. But on Peterson, at the end of one of these tracks, I forget which one it is, but basically he's on the phone call explaining how there was somebody who was lining up another person in the prison, and everybody knew it was going to happen, and it ended up happening to the point where now they was in a room. People knew what was about to go down, and it happened. The dude started to stab him, and I guess the guy who was getting stabbed looked at Tory, and Tory was thinking, man, it's over for you. So that is the reality that Tory Lanez is facing, and not only facing, it actually came to fruition months after this album's been put out, to the point where you realize prison is not a place you want to be. If you're out there breaking the law, if you're out there not being a law-abiding citizen, I'm not trying to get on my soapbox once again, but just know that with Tory Lanez serving a 10-year sentence for the shooting of rapper Megan Thee Stallion back in 2020, now he has to live these instances day to day, and even though he's able to get out his overall musical or artistic expression about what he's experiencing, is still life or death type scenarios that he's facing on a day-to-day basis, being in the California Correctional Institution. So with that being said, the other sentiments I wanted to get at that's a little bit more lighthearted, because of course I don't want to stay on just the morbid situation of being in prison, because things like this can happen whenever, and serving a 10-year life sentence could lead you to understand why people say prison is not a place you want to be. These things that's happening in prison, it's not like people are out here like, oh, prison's a fun place. But whenever you see Blueface, as far as the prison event where they was having people come through, as far as it was like an event or whatever, Blueface said it best. This is not a place you want to be. And whenever you look at popular rappers who now have their freedom taken away because of life choices, it's very sad as far as these instances, because these type of things can happen as far as the stabbing of Tory Lanez. Now, another thing I was wondering on the well, I guess we could stay on the serious note, but not really, but hopefully y'all get it. So when it comes to Tory Lanez, I just want to show y'all something. So this man Tory Lanez is 5'5". Now, why is this important throughout this entire serious segment? Because whenever you're talking about life instances, whenever you look at the cover of Peterson, which I don't think, have y'all ever seen the cover of Peterson? Hold up, let me show y'all this right quick. This is the cover of Peterson. All right, this man's 5'5", or no, 5'3", my fault. He's 5'3", and this is the cover of Peterson. Analytic Dreamz video on Spotify to see the video along with the audio. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because if you're in prison and the things that he's saying makes you feel like he's like a big bad gangster, right? I always say that when he put out this album, he was definitely embracing the role as the main villain of the hip hop universe. Now, why am I saying that? Because when he comes out talking about certain things, certain sentiments that showcases that he doesn't have any type of remorse for what happened, one could only assume that he's absorbing the villain role, like when LeBron went to Miami Heat. So whenever you're in prison and have to deal with the real life consequence, and you're 5'3" with a receding hairline, I don't understand what makes people not be afraid of that, right? Like, if I was looking at a 5'3" person with a receding hairline, I would be terrified. But obviously, the person who stabbed him wasn't. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because he's in stable condition. So we have to talk about how Tory Lanez be talking very spicy on a lot of different sentiments overall in the course of his album. And somebody had to point it out, because at some point, those sentiments have to be backed up. He has a track on his album titled Turning Down Phase, TDF. Like I said, I listen to this album more than majority of people on the planet. TDF, Turning Down Phase, but essentially he's not turning down phase. So on the track, when he says, we're not, how does he say it? It's called TDF, but he's essentially saying he's not turning down phase, even though abbreviation is turning down phase. So he literally says on the chorus, I ain't turning down fades in his PG podcast. So we're just gonna say he just said person what, right? So the reason why I started off the way I did and continuing the way I am now, as far as more of a lighthearted note, is only because he's in stable condition. So now we gotta talk about how this man is, for the foreseeable future, going to have to understand that, especially when people look at you the way they are in hip hop, from the perspective of being under the 10-year sentence as far as in the court proceedings, and before that he ended up falcon punching August Alsina like he was Offset himself. I think a lot of people forget about this, because I want to focus on why he has this perception on him. It's not like something where he's like a martyr, right, in prison. I think there's a lot of things that he did behind the scenes to lead him in a situation. Obviously, the stabbing is not a great thing to happen to you in general. But when you put yourself in that situation, I think prison is not a place you want to be, once again. So that things like this happens often in prison, but it's definitely not a place you want to be. So let me see. Punches August Alsina. A lot of people forgot about this. He did this before the Megan Thee Stallion trial, which made people understand that this is a different individual we're talking about. Like, as far as having the Napoleon complex, I think we got to start calling in the Peterson complex, because ladies and gentlemen, before the trial, Tory Lanez, or August Alsina, alleged that September 17, 2022, Tory Lanez sucker punched him backstage. Now, I don't know if y'all know, but this is in the midst of him having the incident with Megan Thee Stallion. So now, if you're following that up with other incidents of violence, one could just assume that he may be the ultimate villain in the hip-hop game. Now, that doesn't mean that him getting stabbed is justified. I'm just letting you know how life choices ends up putting you in certain situations, which is why I ultimately call Tory Lanez the villain of the hip-hop universe right now. But I still enjoy his music, and I just have to keep it 8 more than 92, because it's more of a twofold conversation than just to be like, oh, feel sorry for Tory Lanez, or oh, Tory Lanez a bad guy. There's like a middle ground, and I feel like that's where I lie. So that's why I wanted to cover this, and it's a very unfortunate situation. Hopefully, because they say he was, well, I already put up the post. I'll put it up again if y'all want to see it. He's breathing normally. He's his lungs collapsed, but he's back to talking normally, breathing on his own. So that's why I wanted to wait to see more details, because if this would have been a way more serious situation, well, it's still serious, but if this would have been a more dire situation, I think maybe is the word, then I would have had different coverage. But since he's stable, breathing on his own, and talking normally, we have to start addressing the more gray area of why he's in this predicament in the first place. So with that being said, click my link tree in my bio. Let me know on one of my social medias. What do you think about Tory Lanez and him being stabbed 14 times in prison, as far as the post trial, as far as Megan Thee Stallion? And what do you think is the biggest reason a lot of people have this negative perception on Tory Lanez?